Hello! Today in this video I'm going to show you how I set up the HX Stomp XL by Line 6 for my live gigs. And the way I like to use this thing live is to have it in stomp mode and assign various effects and different snapshots within the same preset to these 6 switches here. For me, this is definitely the most kind of versatile and powerful way of using something this size, because in preset mode, which is the other mode you can use it in, you just swap between presets. And the caveat to that is, because you haven't got as much DSP as the larger units, you have a slight sort of pause, like a little bit of dead silence between preset changes, which is obviously during a gig, especially like during a song, if you're switching from a rhythm to a lead sound, for example, it doesn't really work. So this really comes to the fore when you use it in stomp mode, the way that I'm talking about. So the end goal with this video is to show you how to have these 6 switches set up for one preset where you can activate, turn on and off any effects you want, any snapshots you want, in any combination or any order, obviously within the confines of having 6 switches. And also, just before we get into this, if you're not aware of what snapshots are, just very quickly, snapshots are essentially like different states of the same preset. So I think all modelers and profilers and stuff have this in some form, but obviously it's a bit different to if you just have, say I had a delay on this switch, that just turns the delay on and off. But if I have a snapshot, what it does is you can make as many different changes within the preset from one snapshot to another. So you could have 4 pedals turn off and on, for example. And the amazing thing is as well, is you can have different parameters for effects pedals and amps and stuff change between snapshots, which is really, really cool. And that's something I do a lot as well. So I'm going to attempt to show you all of that in this video. There is a particular part of this process as well, which I can't say I found particularly clear how to do, and it took me a while to work out. So I'm going to kind of highlight that. It probably is in the manual, I just missed it. So hopefully it saves anybody a little bit of time, if anything. So first of all, I'm going to show you an example of one of my actual gig presets and show you kind of like what we're heading towards, and then we're going to jump into HX Edit on the computer and I'll show you how to set this all up. So this is a preset for a funk band that I've just started playing with, and as you can see, along the bottom 3 switches, there are these white LEDs. These are 3 different snapshots that I have. So this is snapshot 1, snapshot 2, and snapshot 3 along the bottom. This snapshot is basically just a dry, I think it's just the amp with a compressor. Yeah, the compressor I think is always on, just giving a slight little bit of squeeze. And then this is just the amp on its own. So that's like a dry, just a simple dry clean. This is like a wet clean. So that's the reverb and the delay activated, which are quite wet. That's a couple of songs that I use that on, and then this one is like a lead. There's just a few solos in the set, so that's the lead patch. So what's happening here is, you can see I'm switching through. That's just the basic sound. This one turns on the delay and the reverb here, and then this one's turning on the drive and the delay and the reverb. They're all on. You'll also see, if I go to the mix amount here is a white instead of an orange, and you see that actually changes. The value of it, sorry, changes as I go through. So it's 35% there, goes down to 25 on the solo. I didn't want quite as much reverb, so that's just another example that you can change parameters between snapshots, which is really cool. And then along the top 3, got some individual effects. So this is like a pitch, just a simple pitch thing. I go to that. It's like a 1 octave down with a mix on about 50%. Just a couple of moments in the set where I need that. What's this? Can't even remember. Phaser for the kind of the funky, some of the funky stuff. Then the delay obviously is coming on and off in certain moments, but I have it on here in case I just want to turn it off, because why not? I actually have 2 delays in here, so when I go to the lead, you see it's actually changed to the other one, I think. Yeah, so that's the wet clean, which has 1 delay on, which is kind of much more of a kind of squidgy kind of analog delay sound, and then this one is for the lead, is a little bit more, I think it might be a Yeah, it's a duck delay, which I like to have on lead because it gets out of the way when you're playing. So that's kind of what we're aiming for here. And you don't have to have 3 and 3. You can have any amount of, you could have 2 snapshots and 4 effects, or all you're limited to 4 snapshots actually. So you can have 4 snapshots and 2 effects. You can have kind of anything in any order you like. So yeah, I'm going to jump on the computer now and show you how to set this all up. In fact, I've prepared a blank preset here somewhere. This is preset mode, by the way. So if you press the mode button and you have a red LED, this is showing you that you're on that preset. You can see I've got some other ones here. And then to dive into the preset and use the stuff you've set up in stomp mode, you press the mode button, and now we're within that preset using the stuff that we've assigned. And then if I bank up, I can find the blank preset that we have to use for today. There we go. If I press mode now to get into it, to go into stomp mode, you see it's all blank because we haven't set anything up yet, and that's what we're going to do now. So we'll go into the computer. Okay, so I had that blank preset, but just to save a bit of time, I've just added some stuff in just to create an example preset to use to show you what's going on. So I've got a compressor, a drive, I've got an amp and a cab. You might want to use the separate amp and cab, but I've just done this for simplicity. And then I've got a delay and a reverb doing the parallel thing. I had to put a phaser in there as well. So there's a preset, and this is where the snapshot selection is in the software. So if you see from this drop down menu, if I choose the different snapshots, that's sort of bringing us into the different snapshots as I click them. And you see everything is all turned on for every snapshot. At the moment, that's the kind of default thing as you add stuff. So let's set up the snapshots first of all. Let's say the first snapshot, I want to have just the amp. So let's take the compressor off, the drive off, everything off, except for the amplifier. If I go to snapshot 2, it's then going to remember what I did in snapshot 1. So if I go back there, you see it's just the amp. So it kind of remembers as you go, so you don't have to keep saving. It's probably a good idea to save every now and again though. And then number 2, I don't know, should we just say we want the compressor and the phaser and the amp and the reverb, for example, some random stuff going on. Then number 3, let's say we want a kind of lead kind of tone for this. So compressor off, drive on, phaser off, amp on, delay on, reverb off. And then number 4, let's just say we want it to be drive off, compressor off, but all that stuff on. Very random. It's not. I'm not going for like something that would work in practice. I'm just showing you some different options. So we've got something different set up on all 4 snapshots. Let me show you the parameter change thing as well. That's really cool. So say like for this snapshot 3, which we said would be like a kind of lead thing. Let's say I wanted to make the channel volume bump up a couple of dB for this one to give me a volume boost. So if you go to bypass controller assign here on this tab, and then here where it says bypass at the moment, select that drop down menu and go to the parameter you want to change. So channel volume here, and then controller, we want to select snapshots. So this is telling the HX Stomp that we actually want the channel volume value to be changeable between the snapshots, so that each snapshot can have an individual value if we want it to. So now that's set up, if we go back to the edit tab here, you see that the value for the channel volume that we selected here has actually gone white. And that means that this is now independent. So if we did bump this up to a couple of dB higher, if I then select snapshot 2, you see it's gone back down to its default value that it was before. It'll be the same with snapshot 1, but snapshot 3, it goes up. And again, it's just going to remember the changes that you made. So that's really cool. Another way that I like to use this feature is on the cab. When it starts getting kind of gainier, at gig volumes, I find that the top end gets a little bit sort of spiky and harsh sometimes. So what I kind of like to do, and you can experiment with this, but I'll just show you for an example. Use the high cut to sort of, on certain snapshots, sort of come in and cut off some of the high end. So if I set that up, bypass controller assign, this time we want to make a change to the high cut, and the controller needs to be snapshots. Back to edit tab, that's gone white. So on this snapshot now, I can move this down to, let's say, like 5K, something like that. And then again, the other snapshots, it will be off. You can adjust it for every different for every snapshot. You can have it a different value if you want. So that's really cool, and that's, for me, it's that's a really important feature, that you can tailor the amount of high end in each sound depending on how much gain there is, how much fizz there is, which is really cool. So now that we've got that all set up, we have what the snapshots that we want. We want to assign the various things that we just set up to the switches. So to do that, in here we go to Window and then Command Center. Now this is a representation of all the stuff you can possibly assign things to on the HX Stomp. You've got some things that are additional kind of external things, like these pedals here. These 6 switches in the bottom left are the ones that are on the unit itself. So these are the ones that we're going to be using to assign to. So this is where I got tripped up a bit, and it took me a while to figure this out. It might seem obvious, but I just somehow couldn't get my brain around it for a while. So hopefully this really helps you guys. Let's say we want to assign our snapshots like this. We want snapshot 1 there, snapshot 2 there, snapshot 3 there, and then snapshot 4 on this one. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And click this one to highlight it. And from the command thing, select HX Snapshot. And then from this middle one, I want to leave the first one and the last one the same. This middle one I'm going to change to snapshot 1, because I want this to be snapshot 1. And then I'm going to go through and do the same with the others. So this one I want to be HX Snapshot, snapshot 2. This one, snapshot 3. And then this one, snapshot 4. So before I'd got my head around this, I assumed that this was all now set up. But what now happens is, you can see on the unit, this LED is highlighted because we're in snapshot 1, and this is the one we told it to be snapshot 1. So that all works. If I then go to snapshot 2, you see that the highlighted LED is now gone, the whole thing's basically broken. None of the buttons will work now. So what I then eventually worked out was, if I go back to snapshot 1, you'll see that highlighted LED come back up, is this menu at the top here is corresponding to the snapshot we're currently in and the snapshot that we're assigning these within. So we've just set up these switches for the snapshots within snapshot 1. So we're basically saying, when we're in snapshot 1, these switches do this. If we then skip to snapshot 2, we haven't got any assignments on these yet. So that's why it doesn't work. So basically, every single snapshot you have on a switch, in that state, you need to tell it what you want the switches to do. And we want them always to do the same jobs. We want this to be 1, this to be 2, this to be 3, this to be 4 on all snapshots, so that whichever snapshot you're in, they always do the same job. So we need to go through, select this one, and now select snapshot 2 at the top. So this is saying when we're in snapshot 2, sorry, I'll go to this switch. When we're in snapshot 2, this switch wants to be snapshot 1. We're going to choose the same choices, right? Snapshot 2 for this one, snapshot 3 for this one, snapshot 4 for this one. If we're within snapshot 3, we want this to be 1. Right, it's all the same stuff. 2 for this one, 3 for this one, 4 for this one, and then finally when we're in snapshot 4, again we want that one to be snapshot 1 and 2, that one to be 3, that one to be 4. And now you'll see on the floor I can swap between them and it all works. Lovely. So yeah, really hope it saves you guys some time. Like, I'm sure there's something in the manual for that or whatever, but I certainly didn't see it. So anyway, right, so that's done. Now we've got 2 spare switches we haven't used yet, and I like to, if I have spare switches, which I always do, I like to assign some effects to those, just so I have, the choice to turn things on and off. And the effects that I add to those will depend on the gig and the situation, all that kind of thing. But just for this example, let's add a couple of effects to these. You obviously can do it in here. I prefer just to do it on the actual thing itself on the floor because it's so easy. So if I use move the mic a little bit, hopefully the audio is still good. If I select, let's say we want to add the drive to this one here. If I select the drive using the navigation wheel here by turning it anti-clockwise till I get to it, there we go, that's the clon thing. And then hold my finger on this switch for a couple of seconds. And it says, do you want to add it? I say yes. and it assigns it to that switch. Really easy. So then let's say we want the phaser on this one. I'm going to navigate to the phaser. Again, just hold. When I say hold, I mean just touch and hold really lightly on there because it's touch capacitance or whatever it is. Do you want to add? Yep. There we go. Literally as simple as that. And then look, as I go through the snapshots, it's going to give me feedback to whether these are on. Like this was the lead one, wasn't it? And the drive's on. So if you were on snapshot 2, for example, and then you know, for whatever reason, you're like, oh, turn the phaser off, you can do it. And it's still in snapshot 2. All the other stuff you've got in there is on, but you're able to control that. There's also a setting in here for whether you want the snapshots to remember the choices you've made on these or not. So what I mean by that is, say you're on snapshot 2 and you decide to turn the phaser off, and you go to snapshot 3. If I come back to snapshot 2, it's remembered my choice to turn that off, because by default that should be on snapshot 2. There's a setting in the global settings that you can change so that it, when you go back to it, it remembers, it goes back to the default snapshot, so that would be back on. And you can decide whether that's what you want to use or not. But yeah, super flexible and works really, really well. So there you go, pretty simple, really easy to set up as long as you know what you're doing. That command center thing I mentioned about the different snapshots, having the individual assignments of the switches, like caught me out and took me a few minutes to work that out. So hopefully it saves somebody some time at the very least. But if you found this useful, I'll be doing some more kind of stuff like this. So if you want to subscribe, that'd be great. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.